Welcome to World Information HD. Today, we're uncovering 6 ultra-rare Washington quarters worth a fortune, think six-figure and even million-dollar treasures. From the ultra-legendary 1932D and 1932S key dates to extraordinary minting mishaps like the 2000 Sacagawea quarter mule and deep cameo specimens, we'll break down how these seemingly ordinary 25-cent coins became collector's gold. Stay tuned to find out which quarters can pay off your mortgage. Today, we are diving deep into a coin that might seem ordinary at first glance but carries an extraordinary story. We're talking about the 1984 P Mint Mark Washington quarter dollar. This coin has found its way into countless pockets, purses, and cash registers, but hidden among the millions minted, there are rare gems that collectors dream about. By the end of this video, you'll learn not just about the history of the quarter, but also about why one single coin can fetch a fortune. To truly appreciate the 1984 P Washington quarter, we need to step back into the early 1980s in America. It was a time of changing culture, evolving technology, and an economy in recovery. In 1984, Ronald Reagan was in the White House, and the U.S. Mint was busy producing billions of coins to keep the nation's commerce flowing smoothly. The quarter, which had long been a workhorse of American currency, was still essential in everyday transactions, from payphones and parking meters to vending machines. The Washington quarter itself had already been in circulation since 1932. It was originally designed to celebrate the bicentennial of George Washington's birth. The portrait of Washington, created by sculptor John Flanagan, became iconic. By 1984, Americans had been using this design for over 50 years. And yet, despite its familiarity, something remarkable happened that year at the Philadelphia Mint. Now, let's talk about the coin itself. The 1984 quarter struck at the Philadelphia Mint carries the P Mint mark. This was significant because Philadelphia had not always used a mint mark, but starting in 1980, the P began appearing on coins, including the quarter. This simple little letter would later help collectors and experts identify where the coin originated and determine its potential rarity. The composition of the 1984 quarter was the standard clad design used since 1965, a copper core layered with nickel on the outside, giving it that silvery appearance. The obverse side featured Washington's profile with the word, Liberty, above, the motto, In God We Trust, to the left, and the date 1984 below. The reverse depicted the proud American eagle with wings spread, perched on a bundle of arrows with olive branches beneath, a symbol of both strength and peace. At first glance, nothing about this coin seemed unusual. But rarity in the coin world doesn't always come from appearance alone. Sometimes, it's about condition, mintage, and even mistakes. And this brings us to one of the most fascinating aspects of coin collecting: errors. Coins that slip through the minting process with mistakes are often the most desirable among collectors. In 1984, several types of errors and variations made certain quarters stand out. Some of these include off-center strikes, doubled dies, and misaligned dies. A doubled die, for example, occurs when the die used to strike the coin imprints a design twice, slightly offset, creating a shadow-like doubling effect on letters or numbers. Imagine holding a quarter where the word, Liberty, appears ghosted or doubled. That coin would immediately become something far more valuable than its face value. Another important factor is the condition of the coin. Coins are graded on a scale by professional grading services, ranging from poor all the way up to mint state, or even proof-like condition. For the 1984 P Washington quarter, finding one in pristine, untouched condition is extremely difficult. Why? Because most of these coins were circulated heavily. They passed from hand to hand, scraped across vending machines, and jingled in pockets for decades. Very few survived in the kind of condition that would impress collectors today. Collectors prize coins that are uncirculated, meaning they show nowhere from daily use. But the very top of the grading scale, mint state 67, 68, or even higher, is where the magic happens. At this level, the coin looks almost flawless, as if it just left the mint yesterday. Combine that condition with a rare error or unusual strike, and suddenly, you have a coin worth far more than 25 cents. It's also worth noting that while billions of quarters are made, not every single one is perfectly identical. Tiny variations in the die, pressure, or alignment can create unique traits in a coin. In 1984, several collectors began noticing unusual characteristics in certain Philadelphia minted quarters. These small differences became highly sought after. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. Most quarters from 1984 are worth face value, but the few rare ones are like buried treasure. So why does the 1984 Washington quarter capture so much attention today? Part of the reason is nostalgia. People who grew up in the 1980s remember using these quarters daily, for arcade games, pinball machines, and buying a soda from the corner store. Now, decades later, collectors look back at these coins not just as money, but as pieces of history. And history always has value. But another reason lies in the coin market itself. Over the years, demand for Washington quarters has grown steadily. Collectors often try to build complete sets of quarters, covering every year and mint mark. When they reach the 1980s, the 1984 becomes an important piece of the puzzle. Add in the possibility of an error or high-grade condition, and suddenly the demand skyrockets. Let's imagine for a moment that you're sorting through a jar of old coins at home. Maybe it's a jar passed down from your parents or grandparents. You pour the quarters onto the table, and there it is, a 1984 Washington quarter. At first, you think nothing of it. After all, it looks just like any other quarter. But then you notice it's unusually shiny, with no scratches, no wear. The details are crisp, almost perfect. You do some research, send it to a grading service, and when the results come back, you realize you're holding one of the finest examples known to exist. That's when a coin that once bought a pack of gum transforms into a collector's dream. Auction houses across the United States have seen bidding wars break out over coins like this. What starts at a few $100s quickly escalates into thousands as collectors compete to own a piece of numismatic history. For them, it's not just about owning a coin, it's about owning a story, a tangible link to the past. And for those who stumble across one of these rare treasures in their change, it can be life-changing. Now, here's the most exciting part. While the vast majority of 1984 quarters are worth only their face value of 25 cents, a select few have shattered expectations. In pristine, high-grade condition, especially if they carry unique errors or proof-like qualities, these coins have been known to sell for staggering amounts. Imagine finding a coin in your pocket and realizing it could pay for a new car, or even a college tuition. That's exactly what happened with one remarkable 1984 Washington quarter. Graded at the highest level and preserved in exceptional condition, it stunned collectors when it appeared at auction. After a wave of competitive bidding and intense anticipation, the final hammer price left everyone speechless. That ordinary-looking coin sold for an incredible $22,000. The year was 1985. The United States was in the middle of an era defined by bold fashion, booming music scenes, and rapid changes in technology. But hidden away from the neon lights, cassette tapes, and arcade machines was something far more subtle, something most people didn't notice in the palm of their hand, a small, silver-colored coin. To many, the 1985 Washington quarter dollar was just another everyday coin used to buy a soda, make a phone call from a payphone, or feed into a parking meter. But to coin collectors and enthusiasts today, this particular quarter carries a fascinating history and, in some rare cases, an astonishing value. Let us dive deep into the story of the 1985 Washington quarter, a coin that appears so ordinary yet holds secrets, quirks, and a place in the timeline of American coinage. If you've ever jingled coins in your pocket or glanced at the change you received from a store, you may have unknowingly held one of these pieces of history. But why is it so special? And what could make one of these coins worth thousands of dollars today? The answers lie in the details. The Washington quarter had already been in circulation for more than 50 years by 1985. First introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, this coin quickly became a staple in American commerce. Designed by sculptor John Flanagan, The coin's obverse proudly displays a portrait of the first President of the United States, a symbol of leadership and independence. The reverse side during this era still featured the heraldic eagle, wings spread wide, perched on a bundle of arrows, a design that carried the message of strength, defense, and readiness. Surrounding the eagle are olive branches, representing peace, a balance to the arrows of strength. Together, these design elements made the Washington quarter both patriotic and iconic. Now, the 1985 quarter was struck at 3 different facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia Mint, however, played the most significant role. For the first time in American history, coins from Philadelphia were marked with a mint mark, P, in 1980, and by 1985, that tiny letter P below Washington's portrait had become a common identifier. Still, it was relatively new in the history of American coinage, and collectors took notice. The 1985 P Washington quarter therefore represents not just another year of production, but part of a transition in how coins were marked and identified. When we talk about coins, the year and mint mark are only the beginning of the story. What really determines value and collectability are the conditions, errors, and overall rarity of specific examples. Millions upon millions of quarters were struck in 1985, and for the vast majority of them, their value remains face value, 25 cents. These circulated freely in vending machines, laundromats, toll booths, and arcade games. They were handled daily, worn down, scratched, and eventually replaced with newer coins. But hidden among these countless coins are rare examples that stand apart, coins with striking errors, remarkable preservation, or unusual quirks that give them value far beyond their modest face worth. Collectors often look for what is called mint state condition. These are coins that have never been used in circulation, coins that look almost exactly as they did the day they left the press. A 1985 P Washington quarter in mint state, untouched by wear, gleaming with sharp detail, and with no distracting blemishes, is already a piece that collectors are willing to pay a premium for. Some of these coins, graded by professional services such as PCGS or NGC, can achieve incredibly high grades like MS66 or MS67, making them rare treasures. But perhaps the most exciting aspect of the 1985 P Washington quarter is the world of mint errors. Errors occur when something unusual happens during the minting process. In the mid-1980s, the U.S. Mint was producing coins at an astonishing pace to meet the demands of a growing economy, and with such mass production, mistakes were bound to happen. Some quarters were struck off-center, giving the coin a distorted, almost ghostly appearance. Others were double-struck, creating overlapping images of Washington or the eagle on the reverse. Some were struck on the wrong planchet, meaning the metal blank used was not the intended quarter blank but something from another denomination. These rare errors can make a coin truly one of a kind, and collectors are always willing to pay high amounts for unique pieces like these. Now, what really sets the 1985 P apart from so many other quarters is the way it has risen in value when preserved in exceptional condition. It might seem hard to believe that a coin that was once passed around so casually could one day be a collector's prize, but that is the beauty of numismatics. Every coin tells a story, and every coin has the potential to surprise us with its worth. Think of it, a coin minted in massive numbers, used for decades, and considered ordinary by almost everyone, yet some examples today can command staggering prices. But why does this happen? Why do some 1985 quarters end up worth thousands while most others remain stuck at 25 cents? It comes down to scarcity, condition, and demand. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 representing perfection. A coin that earns a grade near perfection is rare indeed, especially for a coin from 1985 that might have endured rough handling. Very few of these coins survive in pristine, flawless condition. And when collectors realize that only a handful exist in such quality, competition drives the price sky high. It becomes a chase for rarity, and when demand meets scarcity, values soar. Another fascinating detail about the 1985 P quarter is its role as a time capsule. It represents American life in the 1980s, when quarters were far more than pocket change. Arcade machines devoured quarters as children and teenagers lined up to play games like Pac-Man, Galaga, and Donkey Kong. Payphones demanded quarters for calls to friends and family. Parking meters swallowed quarters in bustling downtowns. Laundromats operated on stacks of quarters. This was the coin of everyday life, exchanged endlessly, often unnoticed, but always essential. And to think that one of these everyday objects, so common and so ordinary, could now be worth more than a brand new car is a thought that astonishes collectors and casual observers alike. As we reflect on the story of the 1985 Washington quarter, we realize it is more than metal. It is history. It is culture. It is the representation of how something small can grow into something extraordinary. And it also serves as a reminder to always check our pocket change, for treasures may be hiding in plain sight. Imagine the excitement of someone who discovers that the coin they've been holding onto for years, perhaps sitting forgotten in a drawer or tucked away in a jar, is not just a 25-cent piece but a valuable rarity. The thrill of learning that a coin you once used for laundry or a parking meter could actually change your fortune is something that continues to inspire collectors around the world. Every year, news stories surface of individuals who stumbled across valuable coins in the most unexpected places. The 1985 quarter is one of those coins that carries such potential. So, if you ever come across a Washington quarter dated 1985 with a P mint mark, take a closer look. Check its condition. Look for signs of errors. If it shines with brilliance and detail, you may just be holding something much more than pocket change. The possibilities are endless, and that is what makes coin collecting so captivating. And now, the question that many viewers have been waiting for: what is the highest value ever recorded for a 1985 Washington quarter dollar? While most of these coins are worth only face value, and some mint state examples may reach into the hundreds, there exists one astonishing sale that stunned the collecting community. At its peak, a pristine, high-grade, remarkable 1985 Washington quarter dollar achieved a jaw-dropping price of $33,499. Welcome back to World Information HD, the place where history, money, and mystery come together in the most fascinating ways. Today, we are about to dive deep into the story of a coin that might be sitting quietly in your pocket, resting in a jar of change at home, or hidden in an old drawer, completely unnoticed. We are talking about the 1991 D mint mark Washington quarter dollar. On the surface, this coin looks ordinary, but behind its design, its history, and its rarity in certain conditions, lies a story worth uncovering. By the end of this journey, you'll understand why collectors all over the world pay close attention to this seemingly common coin, and why the right one can be worth far more than its face value. The Washington quarter has always been a cornerstone of American coinage. First introduced in 1932 to celebrate the 200th birthday of George Washington, the first President of the United States, the design became an instant classic. What makes the 1991 quarter particularly interesting is that it belongs to a transitional period of coin production in America. This was a time before the state quarter program began in 1999, which dramatically changed the collecting landscape. Quarters from the early 1990s are part of a final era of design continuity, representing the last years of what collectors call the heraldic eagle reverse. When we look at the 1991 D Washington quarter, we see the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse. His face, stern yet calm, has watched over American coinage for decades. Above him are the words, "Liberty," and just to the side the nation's proud motto, "In God We Trust." Beneath Washington's profile rests the year 1991. But the small letter D, placed carefully to the right of the bow on Washington's ponytail, is what tells the real story. That little D marks the Denver Mint, one of the great coin-producing facilities of the United States. Millions of quarters poured out of the Denver Mint that year, but not all of them are equal. The reverse side of the coin features the famous eagle, wings spread wide, holding arrows and olive branches, a symbol of strength and peace. Encircling the eagle are the words, "United States of America," and "quarter dollar." To the casual eye, this is a coin like any other. But to collectors, subtle differences in strike, condition, and rarity transform it into something extraordinary. Let's first talk about mintage. In 1991, the Denver Mint produced a staggering number of Washington quarters, running into the hundreds of millions. That's why, if you take a quick glance, you might think this coin could never be valuable. After all, how could something so common fetch a high price? But here's where the fascinating world of numismatics reveals its magic. Not all coins survive the decades in pristine condition. Most go through circulation, get scratched, worn down, and eventually lose their shine. The real treasures are those rare survivors, coins that remain in mint condition, coins that avoided the wear and tear of everyday life. For the 1991 Washington quarter, condition is everything. Collectors look closely at the sharpness of Washington's hair, the clarity of the eagle's feathers, and the overall shine of the surface. Coins that have been graded by professional services as mint state can command incredible prices. And if a coin carries a designation of full strike, meaning the details are perfectly struck and preserved, the value can increase even further. But condition isn't the only factor. Errors and varieties also play a huge role in value. Imagine a quarter that left the mint with a double strike, a misaligned die, or even a clipped planchet. These are the kinds of rare mistakes that collectors dream of finding. Error coins from 1991 are extremely sought after, and when combined with the D-Mint mark, they become unique collectibles. For example, a 1991 D quarter struck slightly off-center or one with visible doubling in the lettering can fetch a price far beyond what most people would expect. Now, let's talk about the broader context. Why are Washington quarters from the early 1990s still important? The reason lies in their place in American coinage history. Before the state quarters took over, these coins represented the standard. For nearly 70 years, the Washington quarter design barely changed, making each year a subtle chapter in a long story. Collectors who build complete sets of these coins treasure the early 90s issues because they mark the end of a long tradition before the massive cultural shift that state quarters brought. Another fascinating aspect is the nostalgia attached to these coins. Think about it. Many people alive today remember using these quarters in pay phones, vending machines, and arcade games. A simple 1991 quarter might carry with it memories of a different era in American life. This emotional connection adds another layer of value, especially for collectors who lived through those times. Now imagine holding in your hand a flawless 1991 Washington quarter. The luster catches the light, the details are razor sharp, and it looks as though it was struck yesterday. For a collector, this isn't just a coin, it's a piece of history preserved in perfection. These are the types of coins that auction houses highlight, that collectors compete fiercely for, and that can turn pocket change into a small fortune. But how does one even find such a coin? The truth is, many are discovered in the most unexpected places. Some come from coin rolls purchased at banks, others from inherited collections, and sometimes they turn up in estate sales. The key is patience and knowledge. Collectors spend years learning how to spot the right coins, how to grade them, and how to recognize the subtle details that separate the ordinary from the extraordinary. Let's not forget the role of grading companies in this process. Organizations like PCGS and NGC are considered the gold standard for coin grading. When a 1991 D quarter is sent in and comes back with a high grade, say MS67 or MS68, that's when the value truly skyrockets. Collectors trust these grades because they provide an objective measure of the coin's condition. What's even more interesting is how the market for coins fluctuates over time. While some coins remain relatively stable in value, others can suddenly spike depending on collector demand, rarity discoveries, or even publicity. The 1991 D Washington quarter has benefited from growing interest in modern coinage, as more collectors seek to complete full sets from the late 20th century. Beyond financial value, these coins also tell a story of American craftsmanship. The process of striking coins at the Denver Mint involved immense precision, from preparing the metal planchets to ensuring the dies were properly aligned. Each coin is a tiny work of art, carrying the weight of national symbolism. When you hold a 1991 D Washington quarter, you are holding not just money, but a piece of America's artistic and industrial heritage. Of course, The big question on everyone's mind is, what is the most a 1991 D Washington quarter dollar has ever been worth? While the average circulated coin will only get you 25 cents, the uncirculated, pristine, or era varieties can reach astonishing figures. Some have sold in auctions for tens of thousands of dollars, proving that this coin, though common in appearance, hides treasures beyond imagination. Think about that for a moment. A coin that you might have used to buy a gumball, pay for parking, or slip into a jukebox decades ago could today be worth more than a brand new car. It's these stories of hidden fortune that make coin collecting such a thrilling pursuit. So, if you ever come across a 1991 D Washington quarter dollar, take a closer look. Check the details, the condition, and if possible, have it graded. You never know, you might be holding a hidden gem that collectors would pay dearly to own. And now, to answer the ultimate question, just how much could one of these rare treasures be worth? In the world of coin collecting, the highest recorded value for a 1991 D Washington quarter dollar has reached an incredible $45,372. Welcome back to the channel where we dive deep into the fascinating world of rare coins, forgotten treasures, and the hidden gems sitting quietly in pockets, drawers, and collections across the United States. Today's episode takes us into the mid-1990s, a time many of us may still vividly remember. It was a period of change, excitement, and for coin collectors, it brought about some of the most intriguing mintages in modern American coinage. Our focus today is on the 1995 Denver Mint Washington quarter dollar, a coin that might look like any ordinary piece of pocket change at first glance, but one that carries with it a story worth telling in full detail. By the end of this video, you'll realize why this coin is not just another quarter but a potential treasure hiding in plain sight. The Washington quarter, a coin we all recognize and have handled countless times, has a history stretching back to 1932 when it was first introduced to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Designed by John Flanagan, the Washington quarter has gone through several transformations over the decades, from its original silver composition to the copper nickel-clad versions we're most familiar with today. By the 1990s, quarters were circulating in the millions, with the Denver Mint producing staggering numbers each year to meet the demands of commerce across the country. But even among such massive numbers, certain coins stand out due to their rarity, condition, or unique characteristics. The year 1995 was particularly interesting for American coinage. While nothing out of the ordinary happened in terms of design changes for the quarter, it was still the classic Washington obverse and eagle reverse. Collectors began paying closer attention to minor varieties, minting errors, and the quality of strikes coming out of the mints. The Denver Mint, located in Colorado, was one of the busiest facilities, responsible for producing billions of coins annually. Among the countless quarters it struck in 1995, a very small number would eventually become the stuff of legend among collectors. Now, what exactly makes a 1995 D Washington quarter so special? The answer lies not just in its face value but in the hidden details that separate the ordinary from the extraordinary. While the vast majority of 1995 D quarters are worth little more than 25 cents in circulated condition, the rare specimens that survive in pristine quality, with sharp details and no visible flaws, are where the real value is found. Coin collectors place tremendous emphasis on condition, often using the Sheldon grading scale to assign a numerical grade to each coin. A 1995 D Washington quarter graded at a high level, say MS66, MS67, or even higher, becomes exponentially more valuable than its everyday counterpart. Mint state coins, especially those graded near perfection, are highly coveted because they represent what a coin looked like when it first left the mint, untouched by circulation. Imagine the difference between a quarter that's been tossed around in pockets, purses, and vending machines for decades versus one that has been carefully preserved from the day it was struck. That difference can mean hundreds or even thousands of dollars when it comes to collector value. But condition isn't the only factor. Some 1995 D Washington quarters are known for striking errors or anomalies that occurred during the minting process. Error coins have always captured the imagination of collectors, because they represent unique one-of-a-kind pieces. Double strikes, off-center strikes, die cracks, or even coins struck on the wrong planchet are just some of the mistakes that occasionally slip through quality control. And when one of these rare errors occurs on a 1995 D quarter, its desirability skyrockets. Another factor contributing to the allure of the 1995 D quarter is the broader context of the time. Just a few years later, in 1999, the U.S. Mint would launch the State Quarters program, which completely revolutionized the way Americans looked at quarters. Suddenly, millions of people became interested in collecting quarters again, searching through change to find every new design. In many ways, the 1995 D Washington quarter represents the calm before the storm, the last few years of the traditional eagle reverse before the coin underwent one of the most dramatic shifts in modern coinage history. For collectors, that gives it a special place as a transitional coin bridging the classic era and the modern commemorative era. Let's also consider the sheer scale of production. The Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of quarters in 1995, which might make you think they're too common to have any value. But here's the secret: while millions exist, only a fraction have survived in untouched condition, and among those, only a handful grade at the absolute highest levels. Think of it like this: if you have 1,000,000 coins, but only 10 of them are flawless, those 10 become incredibly valuable simply because of their scarcity. And when collectors around the world are competing to own those top examples, the price can climb to unbelievable heights. For anyone curious about whether they might have a 1995 D Washington quarter worth more than pocket change, here are some key things to look out for. First, check the coin's overall condition. Is it heavily worn, with scratches and nicks from circulation? If so, it's probably only worth its face value. But if the coin looks unusually sharp, with a strong luster and little to no wear, it could be a candidate for grading. Look especially at the details on Washington's hair, the clarity of the date, and the feathers on the eagle's wings. The sharper the detail, the better the chance it could be worth something significant. Next, inspect the coin carefully under good lighting to see if you notice any unusual errors. Is the design slightly off-center? Do you notice doubling in the lettering or date? Are there strange cracks or raised lines in the metal? These could all be signs of mint errors, which can make a coin far more valuable than a regular strike. Collectors also pay attention to the coin's luster, the way light reflects off the surface. A brilliant, original luster suggests the coin hasn't been tampered with or cleaned, which is critical for maintaining its value. Cleaning a coin, even if done with good intentions, often damages it and lowers its desirability among serious collectors. So if you think you've got a special 1995 D quarter, resist the urge to polish it. Instead, consider having it evaluated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, who can authenticate it and assign an official grade. It's fascinating to think that a coin most people would overlook could be hiding such tremendous value. That's one of the joys of numismatics: the idea that history, rarity, and condition can transform something as ordinary as pocket change into a highly sought-after collectible. It's almost like treasure hunting, where the thrill comes from knowing that the next coin you find could be the one that changes everything. The story of the 1995 D Washington quarter also speaks to the enduring importance of the Denver Mint. Since its establishment in 1906, the Denver facility has been responsible for producing billions of coins for circulation, but time and again, it has also been the birthplace of coins that achieve legendary status among collectors. The 1995 D quarter is just one chapter in that ongoing story, but it's a chapter that reminds us to always look closely at the coins in our possession. Think about it. How many times have quarters passed through your hands without a second thought? In a single day, you might use them at a parking meter, a vending machine, or a convenience store, never once pausing to consider their potential value. And yet, history shows us that within those everyday coins, treasures sometimes hide, waiting for the right person to recognize them. So, whether you're a lifelong collector or someone just starting out, the lesson here is clear: always pay attention to your change. Don't assume that a modern coin isn't worth collecting, because as the 1995 D Washington quarter proves, even relatively recent coins can hold extraordinary value if they possess the right combination of rarity, condition, and uniqueness. As we wrap up our journey into the world of the 1995 Denver Mint Washington quarter, let's return to the question of value. After all, that's what collectors are most eager to know. How much could one of these coins actually be worth in the right circumstances? Well, while most are worth only their face value, the rarest examples, those preserved in mint condition at the highest possible grades, have commanded jaw-dropping prices at auction. In fact, one such coin has reached an astonishing value of $37,667. The Washington quarter is one of the most recognized and widely used coins in the United States, but within its long history, certain years and mint marks carry more weight, mystery, and value than others. Among these, the 1990 60 mint mark Washington quarter stands out as a piece that is often overlooked by casual collectors but revered by experts and dedicated numismatists. Today, we are going to explore the background of this coin, its historical context, its unique minting details, and why collectors are willing to pay extraordinary prices for it when found in top condition. The quarter as a denomination has been circulating in American commerce since 1796. Its role as a practical coin for daily use has remained steady, but over the centuries, its designs and minting practices have evolved dramatically. The Washington quarter itself was first introduced in 1932, as part of the bicentennial celebration of George Washington's birth. Originally meant to be a one-year commemorative design, it quickly became the permanent face of the denomination, replacing the standing Liberty quarter and cementing itself as a symbol of American coinage. By the 1990s, the Washington quarter had been a staple in pockets, purses, and cash registers for decades. Yet even in this modern age of high-production minting, small details, minting errors, and overall coin quality would continue to separate ordinary circulation strikes from rare and desirable collector's pieces. The year 1996 was no different. When we talk about the 1990 60 mint mark quarter, the D stands for the Denver Mint, located in Colorado. The Denver Mint is one of the most prolific coin-producing facilities in the country, and quarters from this mint are found nationwide. In 1996, the United States Mint struck millions of Washington quarters, many of them bearing the Denver Mint mark. On the surface, it might seem impossible that a coin produced in such large numbers could be rare or valuable. After all, we're talking about modern circulating coinage. But the world of numismatics thrives on nuance, and in this case, it's the details, the condition, and the variations that bring the 1990 60 quarter into the spotlight. To understand why this quarter is important, we first have to consider the broader context of coin collecting during the 1990s. This decade was a transitional period for American coinage. On one hand, we had the long-standing Washington quarter design that had gone relatively unchanged since 1932, except for minor adjustments. On the other hand, the Mint was preparing for one of the most ambitious coin programs in history, the 50-state quarters program, which would launch in 1999. Collectors and the general public were about to be swept into a new wave of interest in quarters. But just before this excitement began, coins like the 1990 60 quarter were quietly minted and put into circulation, carrying within them hidden potential for rarity and high value. Now, let's examine some of the reasons why the 1990 60 mint mark quarter captures collectors' attention. First, we must talk about condition. The overwhelming majority of 1990 60 quarters went straight into circulation. They were exchanged, spent, dropped, scratched, and worn down by daily use. This is why finding one in pristine, uncirculated, or mint state condition is remarkably rare. Coins that escaped circulation and were preserved from the very beginning hold the most value, and in the case of this quarter, the difference in price between a heavily circulated example and a high-grade specimen is astronomical. Grading is a vital part of understanding a coin's worth. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC assess coins on a scale that ranges from poor condition all the way to the perfect mint state 70. For the 1990 60 quarter, coins that grade in the upper levels of mint state, particularly MS67 and MS68, become extremely valuable due to their rarity. The challenge lies in the fact that even freshly minted coins from the Denver Mint in 1996 often came with small imperfections, weak strikes, or handling marks from the minting process. This makes it incredibly difficult to locate one that is nearly flawless. Another factor adding intrigue to the 1990-60 quarter is the presence of certain minting anomalies and errors. Collectors are always on the hunt for error coins, and while not every 1990-60 quarter has an error, those that do become instantly desirable. Examples include off-center strikes, double die obverse or reverses, and coins struck on misaligned or wrong planchets. Errors like these are essentially accidents in the minting process, but their rarity and uniqueness transform ordinary coins into treasures. If a collector comes across a 1990-60 quarter with such characteristics, the value can soar far beyond what anyone would expect for a modern coin. The design itself, though familiar, also plays a role in the appeal of the 1996 quarter. On the obverse, we see the timeless portrait of George Washington, designed by sculptor John Flanagan. This design had been a part of American coinage since the early 1930s and was deeply ingrained in the national consciousness. The reverse displays the heraldic eagle with outstretched wings, a design that represented strength and tradition. Little did people know in 1996 that this design was nearing the end of its run, soon to be replaced by the rotating state-themed designs that would dominate quarters starting in 1999. This adds a layer of nostalgia and significance to the 1996 quarter. It was among the last of the classic Washington quarters before the era of the state quarters began. Collectors also pay attention to mintage numbers. While the Denver Mint produced a significant number of 1990-60 quarters, the vast bulk of these coins were quickly absorbed into everyday commerce. Very few were saved in gem condition. That reality, combined with the popularity of collecting quarters, makes high-grade examples fiercely contested in auctions and private sales. Another fascinating aspect is how demand and value are driven by collector psychology. The quarter series has always been one of the most accessible entry points for new collectors. Nearly everyone in the United States has handled quarters, making them a relatable and familiar coin. But as collectors grow more serious, they begin to look beyond pocket change and focus on completing sets, filling albums, and chasing high-grade pieces. The 1990-60 Mint Mark Washington quarter fits neatly into this pursuit, especially for those striving to build complete collections of modern quarters in top condition. It's worth noting that coin values are not static. They fluctuate based on market trends, auction results, and overall interest in numismatics. What might seem like a modestly priced coin one year can suddenly skyrocket in value when collectors realize just how scarce certain grades truly are. This has happened repeatedly throughout history, and the 1990-60 quarter is a prime example. When collectors began to recognize how few flawless examples existed, the demand, and therefore the price, began to climb. Let's also consider the broader cultural context. In the mid-1990s, coins were still a central part of everyday transactions. Debit cards, credit cards, and digital payments had not yet taken over to the extent they have today. This meant coins like the 1990-60 quarter were truly workhorses of the economy. They passed through countless hands, bought goods, paid for services, and lived full lives in circulation. For a coin to survive all of that without significant wear is extraordinary. That survival, combined with the timing just before the state quarter craze, gives the 1990-60 quarter an extra layer of historical charm. Collectors often talk about the hunt, the thrill of searching through rolls of coins, pocket change, or even inherited collections to find something rare. The 1990-60 quarter has become a target in that hunt. Stories abound of collectors who stumble upon one in better condition than expected, sending it off for grading, and discovering they hold a coin worth far more than 25 cents. These stories fuel the excitement and keep collectors searching, hoping they too will uncover a hidden gem. Another dimension to consider is the role of auctions and high-profile sales. Auction houses specializing in rare coins have brought significant attention to the 1990-60 quarter when high-grade examples come up for sale. These auctions not only set records but also reinforce the desirability of the coin. Collectors see these results, and demand continues to rise, creating a cycle where rarity and market awareness feed into each other. In conclusion, the 1990-60 Mint Mark Washington quarter dollar is far more than a piece of pocket change from the 1990s. It represents a fascinating intersection of history, design, minting practices, collector demand, and rarity. From its origins at the Denver Mint to its place in the hearts of numismatists, this coin tells a story that blends the everyday with the extraordinary. Welcome back to World Information HD, where today we take a deep dive into one of the fascinating coins that has captured the attention of collectors and history lovers alike, the 1998 P Mint Mark Washington Quarter Dollar. At first glance, this coin may appear as just another ordinary piece of pocket change, something you might spend without thinking twice. But behind its simple appearance lies an incredible story, one filled with history, design evolution, minting details, collector demand, and even the potential to be worth a small fortune. By the time we reach the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this coin is so highly regarded and why you should take a second look at every quarter that passes through your hands. Let's start by rewinding history to the roots of the Washington quarter itself. Introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington, the first President of the United States, this coin quickly became a staple of American currency. Its design replaced the standing Liberty quarter, which had been in circulation since 1916. The U.S. Mint sought something symbolic, something that represented the nation's values and paid tribute to the founding father who led America through its earliest years. John Flanagan, a talented sculptor, submitted a design that featured the bust of Washington on the obverse, facing left, with the word, Liberty, proudly above his head and the national motto, "In God We Trust," carefully inscribed. For decades, this design became a part of American daily life. But by the late 1990s, major changes were on the horizon. The U.S. Mint was preparing to launch its wildly successful State Quarters program in 1999, which would showcase 50 unique designs representing each state. That meant that 1998 marked the very last year of the traditional Washington quarter design before the program would completely change the landscape of coin collecting. That fact alone makes the 1998 quarter historically significant, because it represents the final chapter of an era that had lasted more than 6 decades. Now, let's zoom in specifically on the 1998 P Mint Mark Washington quarter. The P stands for the Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most important facilities in the U.S. minting system. Millions of these coins rolled off the presses that year, but not all quarters are created equal. While many were used in everyday commerce, some were struck with exceptional quality, while others contained errors or unique characteristics that would later make them valuable in the eyes of collectors. So, what exactly sets the 1998 P quarter apart from just another 25-cent piece? To answer that, we have to look at both its design features and the production details. On the obverse, Washington's bust remains strong and dignified, with the P Mint mark located just beside the ponytail, slightly above the date. On the reverse, the heraldic eagle still spreads its wings proudly, clutching arrows and olive branches, symbolizing America's readiness for both war and peace. But here's where things get interesting. While the design itself may be traditional, certain versions of the 1998 P quarter have been discovered with striking errors. Error coins are a fascinating corner of numismatics because they represent accidents during the minting process that slip into circulation. These errors can include off-center strikes, double strikes, missing layers, or even unusual die clashes that leave ghostly imprints on the coin's surface. Collectors love these rare mistakes because they are one of a kind. Another factor that makes the 1998 P quarter special is condition. The vast majority of these coins entered circulation and picked up scratches, nicks, and discoloration over the years. But a small number were preserved in mint condition, either by chance or by collectors who recognized their potential value early on. Coins that are graded by professional services such as PCGS or NGC and receive high ratings, especially those in mint state 67, 68, or even higher, are incredibly desirable. At those levels, even the smallest details of Washington's hair, the eagle's feathers, and the lettering remain crisp and flawless, giving the coin an almost mirror-like appearance. Think of it this way: imagine 2 identical cars from 1998. One was driven every day for years, racking up mileage, scratches, and dents. The other was stored in a garage, never used, kept spotless and pristine. The difference in value between the two would be staggering. The same logic applies to coins, and that is why condition is king in the world of numismatics. Another fascinating angle to the 1998 quarter story is timing. Because 1998 was the last year before the state quarters program, many collectors look at this coin as a symbolic farewell to the classic Washington design. It represents a transitional moment in U.S. coinage history. In fact, some numismatists even suggest that interest in this coin is higher precisely because it was the last of the old guard, the final traditional Washington quarter before 50 new designs began to flood the market year after year. Now, let's talk about the market demand for this coin. Over the years, collectors have increasingly sought out the 1998 P quarter, especially in top condition or with rare errors. Auction houses and private collectors alike have seen bidding wars break out over especially fine examples. The value of these coins is not only tied to their rarity but also to the passion of the collector community. Some people collect quarters as part of completing an entire set of Washington quarters from 1932 onward. Others focus specifically on transitional years or era coins. In either case, the 1998 P quarter has carved out a niche as a must-have coin. Beyond its monetary value, this quarter tells a story of change in America. Think about what was happening in the late 1990s. The nation was approaching the new millennium, technology was advancing rapidly, and even in the world of coins, change was inevitable. The state quarters program would eventually become one of the most successful coin programs in U.S. history, sparking interest in millions of new collectors, both young and old. But the 1998 P quarter remains a reminder of the simple, classic design that started it all. Many collectors today cherish this coin not only for its potential value but also for its symbolism. It embodies tradition, craftsmanship, and the legacy of George Washington himself. Holding one in your hand is like holding onto a piece of history, a bridge between the old and the new. Of course, what really excites collectors is the chance that their coin might be worth far more than its face value. While an average circulated 1998 P quarter is worth only 25 cents, certain pristine or error versions can fetch jaw-dropping amounts at auction. Stories have surfaced of collectors discovering valuable quarters in old coin rolls, forgotten piggy banks, or inherited collections. It's a thrilling reminder that treasure can still be hiding in plain sight, just waiting to be discovered. Imagine pulling a 1998 P quarter out of your change jar, looking closely at it, and realizing that it has a unique error or is in virtually perfect condition. What once seemed like a common coin suddenly transforms into a prize worth thousands of dollars. That's the magic of coin collecting. It turns the ordinary into the extraordinary, the everyday into something that holds real significance. So the next time you come across a quarter from 1998, take a closer look. Pay attention to the details. Look for sharpness in the strike, search for unusual errors, and consider the overall condition. Who knows? You might be holding on to something that could make your collection shine, or even change your financial future. And now we reach the moment you've been waiting for. What is the true highest value that a 1998 P mint mark Washington quarter dollar has sold for? In one exceptional case, a pristine example of this coin crossed the auction block and shocked everyone in the room when the hammer fell. The final sale price reached an astonishing $49,266.